Vipassana. Most of the time, my meditations are really simple and uncomplicated, and like nothing very memorable, nothing exciting happens, and that there's no like, they're just about acceptance and seeing, right? To me, like as opposed to other, as opposed to like movement, that it's just it's it's mostly passive with some active like noticing. Like that's the only action that is happening.
Yeah.
Like trying to be aware, right? And so I think that in that way I'm not like open to, I'm not trying to manifest anything in these in most of my sits.
Yeah.
So they're not like imaginative, or
that's great.
They're very like embodied and here, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's the Vipassana one is interesting on account of when I was interviewing Twinkle, theirs was also from a Vipassana in a similar sort of, they used different words, but panic would be a word that I think would fit to what they were describing.
Okay.
Which makes me very curious, all the more so about Vipassana. I'm on a wait list.
I can talk about that experience.
No, I mean, so there's just that. So there's that, like, reaction that came up in me. And then what I'm really getting at is there's two main nuanced points that I'm especially interested in. And one is in relation to this ongoing investigation of intuition and how, and defining that really loosely. And so instead of saying maybe intuition, a better way to put it would be, a broader way I think to put it would be information from sensation. Of an internal sort, and so, like, for example, sometimes people have that in meditation, and so that's one thing that I'm interested in, of like, did you ever have any, and I even think that panic really would fit within that, of like, there's something arising that's particular, in a way that's different than watching thought, or not necessarily different, but sometimes when you have the sensation, oh, this is a particularly strong whatever it is, it is like, for some reason, standing out a bit more than other thoughts that wash by, or sensations that wash by, or whatever. And then the other thing that I'm interested in investigating is just real broadly the difference of, whenever you're sitting, the difference of what happens sensation-wise compared to meditative open movement. And so I think that this question of picking any strong time is more of I don't know. I guess there's sort of an idea that there's like a stronger memory associated to it. If something stands out, it's like more of you noticed it in some way. And so that's really the drive there. That's really, it's like, it seems easier. And then that said, it could be any from Vipassana or just daily, just the idea of just really trying to investigate a small moment And so then you pick the moment from that kind of introduction.
I think that a lot of the insight I gain from meditation has involved like reading between sits, and like it's cognitive and then embodied.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know that the lessons first come from the body with meditation for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like something that I feel this year, and that like kind of was revelatory was, you know, because you always hear people like hippies talk about that, like we are all, you know, we're all connected and interdependent, right?
Mm-hmm.
But just
I love
materially, on a really like fundamental level, you know, we are utterly dependent
Yeah.
on external inputs constantly.
Mm-hmm.
And that we simply are nothing without, we are not, you know, without constant input. And that like realization kind of through meditation creates a sense of sort of like ease and being held.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah, like meditation to me is in a place where, for the most part, like much very strong happens. It's listening.
And that's totally fine. Like it doesn't need to be like, you know, a special.
But I will talk about the Vipassana thing, because I feel like, yes, it makes sense to me that more intense, strange things happen when you're meditating, you know, 8 hours a day, or and you're very sensorily deprived. It was a couple days in, maybe halfway through. We were doing body scans from like head to toe, head top to bottom, and back up, and I had the feeling that I had no body, that it was not there, and the response was panic for sure, and kind of an inability to breathe. Like I felt like I was dead, and I just sat there with it, and it eventually passed. And I spoke to a teacher about it afterwards, and he didn't read it as fear of death. He read it as fear of fear, which I think is a curious interpretation. I know, recognizing that we carry a lot of fear in our bodies, in the ways that we like, and it impacts how we move about the world, you know, and how we are inhibited in things that we do. And so that's what I got from that. But yeah, a bodilessness, knowing that I had a body, but feeling like there was none there.
Okay. So, to preface a little bit, what I'm gonna try to do is, or what I'll likely do is have you repeat, like we're kind of gonna be rolling over like a videotape, the same moment, more or less, like hitting rewind. And then also do some directing in the way of, it's like, you know, like in class of, okay, can you dive in a particular direction? And then also some recapping to make sure that my words match, like feel like they fit what you're saying.
Okay.
So, and it's going to be the kind of memory of, yeah, when you're like, I can sit here and say, oh yeah, I remember being a little kid, or dropping into the body and calling up the memory and feeling the feeling of being a little kid. So it's the kind of dropping in memory that we're going for. Um, and I think maybe describing the situation. So, heading for the moment right before the feeling of no body, and then starting with describing as much as you can remember. And if you don't remember, that's fine. And um, like, what was the room like, and where were you sitting, and how were you sitting, and how far away were people, and what could you hear?
Okay. I was sitting in the big meditation hall, which has like a somewhat dim lighting, and most people were sitting on mats, on cushions, on the floor. Other people were close by, I'd say within 2 to 3 feet, probably in all directions. And I was probably 2/3 of the way back, because they sit you hierarchically in terms of how many sits you've done. And I was new, so I was in the back-ish. And so the way the teachings work is that you begin by just focusing on your nostrils, right, for the first few days, and then they progressively more of the body is added in. And it was a time in which we were doing more full body scans. And so the action, or the activity, is to try to feel sensations sequentially in your whole body moving down. Which is what I was doing. And at a certain point, I could not feel my body. I had been feeling my body. You can feel like, you can even feel like little sensation in your hair and in your head, or your clothes on you, and I could still breathe, but in my mind's eye, like I could almost like I could imagine the space where my body was, but I could see no body. It was almost like you could like pass a hand through an empty space. And it was scary. I think I opened my eyes. Yeah, I don't know.
If you go, so then starting again from, can you remember and kind of feel in your body, remember how you were sitting?
Yeah, I was sitting cross-legged. With a straight back. I can't remember if I was wearing a blanket or not, but yeah, I was sitting cross-legged in a typical meditative pose.
Do you remember where your hands were?
I don't. Mm-mm.
And then do you remember when your eyes were shut at that time, if they were open, would you be looking straight ahead?
Yeah.
Okay.
You'd be looking straight ahead or slightly down.
And do you remember if your eyes were moving in relation to the body scan? If you were going from the top of you to the bottom?
My eyes were closed.
Underneath your lids.
I was not aware of my eyes moving.
Okay. And then in the body scan, like the moment right before you didn't have a body, or do you remember where you were in the scan?
No.
And then do you remember any
I feel like my body disappeared under my neck, like in my chest or torso.
So you could still feel your head?
No, I couldn't.
Okay.
But I think before that, I'm trying to remember, but I feel like I wasn't aware of feeling like anything once I had no body. Um, until I think I opened my eyes and like felt myself, but that I had a body and then I didn't. I feel like under my neck, like it was like very much like in my memory that like a torso and a head, but the predominant feeling is like core, not there. Yeah.
Wow. And then, yeah, like again, if you don't remember, it's okay. Just wondering if there was anything like right before the core disappeared that, like, if you were going about your business, and then if there's any sensational memory of what made you aware that your core wasn't there, like what indicated that to you.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm. And then it, as much as it comes to you, the difference in sensation between the no body but head and torso to the no core, can you describe anything about like that, the border of that territory, or how they were different?
I think I don't think they were different. I think that the whole body disappeared under the head, but the head was gone too at that point. If that makes sense. Like it's almost as if like the scan was happening, and then at this point everything disappeared.
Right under your chin.
And under the chin, including the head, like this was the moment of the full disappearance.
Oh, I see. So when yeah, like almost like, if I could say, a line kind of under your chin, and then it from that line it disappeared below and above.
Yeah.
And do you have any memory of the difference in the below and above disappearance? Like if it was simultaneous.
I think it was simultaneous. I don't think it wasn't progressive. Like I have some memory of a moment of of feeling like I was not I had no body, but there was still awareness of there being no body. But it wasn't like a slow disappearance. It was just suddenly like a noticing of something different, something somewhat like scary, unsettling, and it was like an instant of fear. Like that was like that was the moment of noticing. Like it's not there. That's scary, you know.
And then in that, so just to say that actually makes sense to me. So my questions are not because they don't make sense, just trying to, kind of bring a microscope to it more.
Mm-hmm.
In the words of fear and scary, are there any other adjective descriptors that would fit the memory that you have?
memoryless.
Mm-hmm.
Mm, mm, anxious.
And like maybe another way to ask, or maybe a slightly different asking, would be, how did you know you were afraid?
I knew by, I guess, what my nervous system was doing. In that, right, which is curious to think about, right? Because feeling like you have no body, but it's still a body responding in a, and I guess I didn't have awareness of that fact,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Of the reality that it was a body producing I think, I don't know, like I know I had I can't remember what my heart did. I had a hard time breathing. It was hard to, I did breathe, but it was challenging. I felt like breath wasn't going to come, or breath wasn't going to be there.
Could you feel the duress of the breathing anywhere particular?
Mm-mm.
It was just but sorry, am I understanding correctly? There was kind of an overall sensation of difficulty breathing
Yeah.
without a location.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then, both with the, so it's a tricky kind of investigation, right? Because there's all this, cognition and logic that, like linear logic that goes with it, that is incredibly interesting to me. Of like, yeah, right, your nervous system was responding, but you had no body, and
Right.
So kind of maybe even using that as a jumping board to get to whatever memories may or may not exist of, so maybe I could call the nervous system a noun, and then something like, I'm going to pick an adjective really, I think maybe far away from that moment, but maybe it was pink, or any kind of describers versus that might relate to this word nervous system. And or fear, like it could be a little bit more broad, relating to the word fear to it, whichever works.
Yeah. Energy field.
Are there descriptors for that?
Buzzing.
Mm-hmm.
Buzzing and like all manifestations of vibration, like tingling. Sometimes actually in like at a couple minutes into a meditation, often there is my ears do buzz a little bit for a few minutes. Yeah, what the nervous system has descriptors. I guess like I feel like it's contained, but it's like it's bigger than the container.
Mm-hmm.
Like it has. I don't see tentacles, but I feel like it has like it has a. I don't know. I'm resisting using hippie words.
You can use vague words or made up words, or like this thing, or so you don't have to.
Yeah, the word that's coming to mind is aura,
Uh-huh.
which I kind of hate. That I do feel that way. That like I I feel an energetic space that extends beyond the body.
So can I recap that a little bit of there one of the I'm not even sure if this is right. So one of the indicators that there was fear or that it was scary was that there was buzzing in a energetic field that seemed to have some sense of boundary and also extended beyond that boundary.
Sort of. I guess the distinguishing moment of the realization of no body was that previously there had been clear perception that there was a body, that there was a sensing body to feel and to notice, and then it became as if there was no body, but there was, I guess, still a sensing field without a container, right?
Yeah. And then
I don't know if there was buzzing at that time. I don't know, but there is buzzing sometimes, but not. I don't remember if there was.
If there was specifically that day.
Yeah.
And the kind of describing of that field, that the body disappeared, the perception of your physical body disappeared, and then there came an energetic space that there was something in your description of, like, it seemed like it went a certain distance and then there was some difference and then it extended beyond there also.
I don't know if I understand.
Like when you use this word tentacles,
Okay.
there was a moment where you were describing, I forget your exact word, I'm sorry, of it was like there was the energy field and then it like took up some space and then it also went further, like it almost had tentacles.
Yeah, I guess what I meant is that I feel like the body moves in a like kind of like an orbital or something, you know, like if you think about like the cloud space that electrons move in, that like we extend significantly beyond our container. I think that's all. I don't feel like it has. I don't know that I perceive the range in a measurable.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
And then did you do you remember, did that experience of this energetic space happen the moment you lost perception of your body, or do you remember that transition?
The moment of awareness, I don't remember. I don't know if I remember the transition. What I do remember is the onset of fear / panic, which I did not sit with very long. In that I opened my eyes and actively like tried to come back into the body, and to feel like I had a body because I was scared about not having one.
And then trying to kind of go back to those words of scared and fear. And if you don't remember any descriptors, that's totally fine. Just wondering if, like, kind of coming back to this way of asking it of, like, how did you know you were then afraid or scared.
Hmm. I feel like there were feelings of, yeah, of not being, and almost of like dread, but physically, like I think, like I recall trying to continue to do a body scan
Mm-hmm.
in this place, but perceiving there being nothing there. Like trying to find something to hold onto,
Mm-hmm.
or to, yeah, to perceive really, and there was nothing there. It was like
Mm-hmm.
trying to scan, but I could see the room. I couldn't see the self. I
Um,
could,
I guess it would be like, and um, and like if we don't get there, it's totally fine. Just trying to see, like where if there's something in, because it's like you can see my hand right now, and if my hand were a gun, there might be fear. So it's like maybe that's a silly example, or but the experience of not having a body may or may not be a scary thing, but to any given person or thing, but that you sensed that you were dreading, and you sensed that you were afraid, um, or scared or fearful of not having a body, and wondering, like, what was any sensorial indicator that told your whatever part was aware that you were afraid.
really the breath and the difficulty in breathing,
Mm-hmm.
you know, in getting in like taking an inhalation. I feel like primarily inhalation was the hard thing. Like I think it became conscious at that moment because it didn't feel like it was happening, like
Yeah.
in a sufficient, like in a sufficient way, and that it was hard, that it was a labor. And when the breath isn't, when the body isn't breathing as it needs to, like that's scary, I guess. Like the primary sensation I remember is yeah, not being able, feeling like I could not breathe
And
as I
then
needed.
with that, in that memory, to if I remember right, as you were describing it, it was a more of an overall sensation of not being able to breathe versus identifying any part of your body changed in relation to that, or any part of a sensation changed in relation to that.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Um, and then, um, I guess maybe I'm wondering, it It's kind of a similar thing, and so I'll just kind of let it go, just checking, I guess, one more time. So, like, one could say, okay, I am not able to breathe, and I agree that that's scary. Being a bad swimmer, I have a lot of very present physical awareness of what that feels like, trying to swim. And I guess using that as an example, it's like the not having breath is the cause of the fear, but it's not the adjectives that describe the fear. And
fear, I don't know if fear is even the right word. Like it's the fear, panic are the closest thing that I can name, but it's like with the response to this, frankly, to this new feeling,
yeah,
to something unknown,
yeah,
and maybe that's the defining character of the thing over fear, that it was the first time that I had felt not embodied, like bodiless, right? And that the response to that new feeling was clutching down to feel that there was still one, because that felt safe.
Do you remember clutching down?
Yeah, I remember opening my eyes and really like feeling, trying to like make sure that there still was a body there.
Yeah. Yeah, something about like again, if you kind of if you're able to drop into that moment, like, and then kind of doing a body scan in memory of just seeing if there's any sense of any really vague adjectives, like tempo or quality, or that relate to that new experience.
Movement and space where there had been form.
Does the movement have any tempo or quality to it?
The movement, what I'd say was the volitional aspect, like still trying to scan a place that was no longer bounded. That couldn't be perceived. It wasn't fast, like it was, it was, I feel like this is kind of the pace of the scan.
And was it moving from left to right?
Yeah.
Wait, that was the pace of the scan or the space?
Of the scanning the space where there was, I'd expected there to be something. It was left to right, yeah.
Okay. And did the...
It was like within what had trying to scan the space where a body was expected to be.
Uh-huh. So about the width of your body, more or less.
Yeah.
And then did that air have a particular viscosity or temperature or any attributes to it?
No, it was the same as the room.
Uh-huh.
It was no different than the space of the room.
Cool. That's interesting. And then, so as you were doing this left to right scanning of that space, do you remember any sensation that then transferred you to the eye-opening clenching down?
It was, since I don't know. It feels like visual, like it was like a moment that in my mind's eye, like I could perceive the space and myself, and the body wasn't there, and breathing became hard. Like, I don't know, it was a moment of like, there's no body, I can't breathe. Like I am not, like there's no being here. I don't know that I can describe it in terms of sensation. Like,
oh yeah, no, that's okay. I was just more wondering, like, so the curiosity came kind of because I'm watching your hand go from left to right in this slow, this really kind of calm movement of scanning the space, and I hear your words of dread and scared and afraid, and it's very, in my own experience, very contrary to the gentleness and the slowness of the hand scanning this space.
Right.
And so I'm wondering, I hear and believe and can imagine being afraid, and I'm just curious if there's any. It's like still, yeah. I just can't think of a different way to ask. Of like, how do you know while this calm hand is moving from left to right, scanning, that you're afraid?
I feel like...
Or was that the breath? Is that what, like...
I feel like there was, like scanning, there was an attempt at scanning in the space, right? But I don't know that it was... It's hard to say if it was that slow. Like it wasn't frenetic.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a, it was like a move. Maybe it was faster. I don't know, but it was like a scanning that there was like quickly realizing that there's nothing there.
Yeah.
Right. And having a fear response. It wasn't like, oh, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. There's nothing there. It was like, oh, there's nothing there. Panic. Like not a full thing, but trying to keep, going back to it, and there's still nothing there.
Yeah, okay.
But not necessarily getting through the whole thing.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. I don't, for my own, I don't know, my own understanding of what you're saying, then I'm like, oh, it's like the slowness of a horror movie, not like the slowness of like a calm lake. Okay.
It's no, because there was like pretty fast upon noticing that there was nothing there. There was a fear response, or
Yeah.
this is weird, this is unknown
Uh-huh.
response. Yeah.
And then, and then shortly thereafter, you opened your eyes and clenched onto the physical
Yeah.
form. Okay, so if I can maybe recap as I understand the sequence, is that you're in sitting meditation, and you were near people, and you were sitting straight up, and you were doing a body scan, and then wherever you were in the scan, underneath your chin, both below and above, disappeared in terms of perception and was replaced by an energy field of sorts that felt the same as the air, and that you scanned from left to right and in that space, and as you realized there was no body, an overall sense without a location or adjectives of fear and afraid or scared, and then came the difficulty in breathing without also location or adjective to that, and then you opened your eyes and felt your body and saw your body. And then do you remember, like including your mind as a place for sensation, what happened as soon as you perceived your body again?
I continued to feel shaken, and I continued to feel scared. Like, the feeling of that moment stuck with me for the rest of that meditation, if not like for quite some time afterwards. Yeah.
And then in the residual fear, once you could perceive your body again, could you sense anything about that fear felt in you, again in location or description? Or
There was, I carried a fear of returning to that place.
so, and then like, did that, it's like, maybe, okay, if I squish my finger, I have pain in my finger. It's like I'm wondering, not the reason of the fear, but the where of the fear.
Not distinct.
Okay, cool.
Like, and the mode of of attempting not to go back to that was to breathe. Was to like actively breathe calmly. With awareness that fear, that place was possible.
Did and then at that point when you were breathing, could you then feel the sensations of the breath? One after and then how?
I feel like I could feel this. I could feel the breath, even when it was hard to breathe, but perceptively, there was no body to breathe into.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So there was some sense of breath moving.
There was a sense of breath moving, and there was a sense of, mind perceiving, but no body.
And then even within that, like even within the space of no body and mind perceiving breath happening in the space of no body, if you this is again like if you don't remember, that's cool, just kind of curious if is there any sense of the breath being up or down or behind or left or right?
No.
Uh-huh. Cool. Huh. And then once you opened your eyes, and then the breath was reintegrated into the perceived body.
I guess so.
Fair. Uh-huh. But then once you opened your eyes and you perceived your body, and then there was still some residual vague fear feeling, and then if you remember a point of when the breath changed in its ease.
I don't remember when the breath got easier. I do feel like it wasn't, it wasn't like open eyes, 1 minute later everything is calm. Like it was, I don't know in terms of actual time, but it felt like with eyes open, the feeling of fear, panic, unknown continued. Like it took a while to ground and reassure that a body was there. Yeah.
And then was there any kind of like tempo or tension or tone to the awareness that was present, either during or after?
Tempo or tone to awareness. This is like synesthesia questions. This is hard.
Yeah. I mean, and if you don't have an answer, that's cool. Just wondering, if, because a lot of it is, it's like a lot of what I'm interested in getting at doesn't have language.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's really an activity of also we're creating language as we're going along.
Right. Yeah, it's like, I don't know if I can describe tempo and tone. It felt like there's an awareness. It's almost as if awareness had an expectation that of something, like that it wasn't a neutral awareness. Just that it was just like open to accepting whatever was. Like there was like when what wasn't expected wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
Might have said that incorrectly. When something wasn't there that was expected, like the awareness like freaked out. Like it wasn't like a pure, like, yeah, it wasn't a accepting awareness. It was a control one.
Yeah.
Or something. Yeah. I feel it's a curious dichotomy, right, in meditation, in that you're particularly in a mode like Vipassana that's so structured and that really forces you to focus on particular body parts. Like it isn't a like vast open knowing. It's, you spend like 3 days focusing on your nostrils, like directing your attention to one point, actively directing your attention in a very controlled, precise way. And so I feel like that same sentiment, that same mode of awareness goes into how you scan the rest of the body.
Mm-hmm.
And so it kind of makes sense that, to me, that like it's not that it's a directed awareness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that quality of directed awareness was during the no body time and after. Was it the same quality of directed awareness during the time of new fear and coming down from fear?
Yeah, I'd say it was the same quality of directed awareness encountering known things and unknown things.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Huh. I think that's all. There's not another kind of question that I can think to. It's like the amount that I'm able to, stopping myself from having, like, adding my own adjectives to it. It's like, for example, when I think about meditating and I think about your words of open awareness versus directed awareness, there are different qualities to that awareness to me, such as open awareness feels gentler in tone. It feels softer. It feels quieter. It feels smoother. And directed awareness feels more alert and I guess more angular. There's always, and quicker, and it feels quicker. Like the atoms in the air are quicker around directed awareness, and like they're like smooth, slower bubbles around open awareness. And that's just my experience,
Yeah, I don't feel a tempo shift when it's self-directed awareness, and that I don't do it fast.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't feel the compulsion to move fast. Like I'll take the time I want to in different body parts.
Yeah.
As opposed to being directed, at which case I'll move faster. But my inclination is to just sit with things as long as I feel like. But yeah, a directed awareness is definitely less gentle, more forced, more rigid, more anal feeling. It does imply it implies movement, It doesn't imply being able to sit with something for any length of time, because it's inherently about moving on. About noticing and moving forward. I wouldn't say that anything about the Vipassana feels gentle. It doesn't feel like a space of like calmness and gentleness to self. It feels like a space of discipline.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So, a question, sort of a tangential question of not in the same investigatory way, but just a curiosity of if it's like to go back through that particular moment in the way that we did you is there any new information in there for you?
Yeah, there is. The dichotomy, I guess, or the like dual reality of awareness of perception and sensory experience and awareness with bodilessness.
Yeah.
Like I haven't. It was 10 years ago. You know,
Yeah.
I mostly just felt like traumatized and haven't done another Vipassana and haven't thought about it very much and don't talk about weird things with people because, you know, it's like, you want to talk about this out-of-body experience I had at the Vipassana? Right? So yeah, I feel like that's a curious insight. That alone, and kind of it was early on. It was the first meditation retreat I ever did too, and so I feel like it was also coming from a place, a mind body that wasn't very sensorially attuned.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and so it also makes sense to me that there might not be very much specificity, and that practicing was very new at that point.
It's so, I mean, one of the, just genuine, really curiosities about, like, this particular way of going through a memory, you know, is that I am really curious of, because, like, whether or not, you know, your body had all the muscles of a swimmer, like an Olympic swimmer at that time, your muscles were still there, and all of your cells were still there, and so it's in some way, versus what people call like a representation of a memory, of like that we kind of throw known words onto, you know, and you know, like call back in a way of saying, oh yeah, I was embarrassed on stage or something, versus describing and dropping into like this whole asking of, what happened to us then? Like the all, and like the cells may or may not recall more information, and who knows if that information is correct, you know, like what memory is a wild thing anyway, but that the memory of the cells is also different than the cognitive representational memory. And so it's just really curious to me of like, I even though you weren't a trained meditator at that point, you were still there. All of your cells were still there, you know?
They were still there. The experience feels like a perceptual overlay, kind of like a perceptual silencing of the body. If that makes sense.
No, not quite. I don't quite understand it.
It feels like the mind decided that the body wasn't there and imposed this perception, you could call it, like put on these glasses that couldn't see of that couldn't see a body anymore and couldn't feel a body and believed that there was none
Yeah.
to feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So interesting. Huh. Um, well, okay, a couple of things. One, thank you so much. um, and another one is, if you want some other time to do an interview from, I don't know, some moment from one of the movement classes, I'm really, like, kind of more, I feel like we did a little bit in New Orleans, but then even, I didn't teach that much when I got up here, but then I started really getting into this, like, basically starting people from meditation, like, after a big chunk of a lot of stuff we did, then bringing people into, doing a similar thing of the memory recall of, like, a difficult moment or experience, but also introducing the possibility to say, or bring a question, a really broad question, like, how am I doing, to yourself, or, like, what's going on with this subject, and letting people choose and not saying what they pick, but starting from a laying down, closed eyes sensation between doing a pendulation between whatever sensations happen that are difficult in relation to that memory and moving to a different part in the body that's neutral or vital feeling, and pendulating between the pure sensations of those points and kind of letting go of the situation or question, but just then sticking with the sensations arisen from there. And then moving from that into a dance until you're opening your eyes and moving with others. But whenever you lose your sensations, dropping back as much as you need to re-find them before re-engaging. And it's the thing that I'm, like, totally obsessed with right now. Well, whatever, I'm obsessed with a lot of things. But, but it's part of, basically, it got me really thinking of, because in that experience, it's really similar to maybe authentic movement, but it's more incorporative of awareness in a broad sense to maintain a sense of inner self sensation and the world around you versus just being the yoga on the beach person by yourself.
Right. Yeah, like very much aligned with the, do your thing, like do your holding on to your thing, interacting with other people.
Yeah. And, like, I feel like we did, it's like we did stuff that was specifically that, but that there was a curiosity that I had of, when... It's like, I feel like I just sort of married a few of the different exercises. It was like when you think of a difficult moment and you move however you need to, like, make yourself safe in relation to that feeling. And then continuing that to interact with other people. And I feel like when I did it in New Orleans, it was like, okay, just stay with yourself and do what you got to do to make yourself feel safe in relation to this difficulty. And without the pendulation. And so it's like these really, it's like such a nerdy slight difference of what's happening, of, like, how you're directing your awareness and how broadly you're opening your awareness. But experientially, it's like I have this really... Yeah, it's basically just a really deep intuitive feeling of, I feel like when you're moving improvisationally, and it would be different alone or with others, and I would venture to guess stronger with others, that, Like, basically, you'll figure out yourself what to do.
I think that's a really, that sounds like a super fascinating experience, in that, again, like it sounds like it reaffirms our inherent connectivity.
Yeah, I
you
agree.
know, that we're not just like, in the experiences we did, you know, we felt the place that was like deeply challenging, and moved to like let it go and re-find a place of wellness, you know, in the subtle shifts we made in our bodies to return to that place of like wholeness and being well, you know, and then opened our eyes to the space. Opened our eyes to the space and became aware of other people moving in it, but it was still kind of an inward, somewhat protected way, as opposed to a more vulnerabilizing, like, I am recovering from, still kind of in this place of like woundedness or pain or whatever it is, and I see you, and I'm going to move with you. Like, it sounds like an experiential antidote to capitalist individualism. You know, that like,
Yeah.
you don't need to be alone in, you're not alone in holding your shit, right? And that we can move around each other in like attuned ways with everything.
Yeah,
You know?
simultaneously having different realities of whatever's happening, and yet it's still helpful, I think.
Yeah, and it kind of like takes you outside of that experience. Like, when you are responding to external stimuli, I also think that's kind of like healthy.
Yeah,
to not just feed the story of the thing that you are
yeah,
living, you know, and grounded in something that's truly happening right now.
Yeah, and it's crazy to me because there's all of these, I just don't understand, because there's so many people doing improvised dance, and there's, you know, I could talk for like a long time of why I think it's different than authentic movement or contact improvisation. Both of which I think are great movement practices. But it's weird because I know some dancers are doing this outside of those particular forms, and I know even within those forms, people that are interested in dance as expression for whatever relationship to the world that takes, and meditate or have any experience of meditation. Like, I know I'm not the only one that experiences this, and I don't understand why the people that are studying meditation why there's not more conversation happening. It's really weird, because it's different.
It's different, and having done both, I feel like the intentions of both feel quite different.
Yeah.
But that in terms of like learning and moments of embodied learning,
Yeah.
that I learned more through your sessions than through sitting for 7 years or whatever. Like, I feel like they're like if you were to ask me the same question about, you know, about like a open about one of your sessions, there are like more clear moments that I can identify, and I have a memory of specific body parts and of ways that I held myself, and like, I feel like it was a clearer way of learning than through just trying to be here and accept what is. Like, the simultaneous, both like volitional aspect, like, and the specific, I don't know, you frame the workshops in such a way that at the beginning we gain, like, spending so much time thinking about, like, the spine and movement, that you are really in your body, such that when you would direct us to the places, like the more like therapy moments, as I'd call them, we already had a more diffuse awareness of the body, because we paid attention to the whole body and to all the senses prior to going there in a very targeted way.
Yeah,
and that's
it's like I don't even for example, I got on the Vipassana waiting list because I wanna experience like this rigor of this particular way, you know, and I definitely feel of the mind of, okay, there's a million ways to the mountaintop, you know, like there are many paths, and that I can, even from your description and from other friends' descriptions, the rigor of that mental training also, I think, is so, you know, just as a using it as a metaphor now of, if I'm literally training my muscles every day, when I go to dance without any concern for how I'm dancing, my muscles are more vibrant.
Yeah.
And I feel like that about Vipassana. It's like, if you're training your mind, it's just, you know, it's the muscles are stronger, it's more limber, it can so that when you get into those moments of broad awareness, it's like then your ability to connect is. And so I just feel like there's all of these different mindfulness practices that really just completely feed each other and do subtle nuanced differences. And it's like, for me, I am just in love with what I'm doing, because it's like this, like, you know, like I'm an artist. It's so exciting to me to make a dance happen, you know?
Right.
And all of the tools and the techniques and the training rigor to be able to get to that point of, and now we make art effortlessly, is also really fun. It's so fun, you know?
But I think it's like Vipassana is coming from, like, was brought over from India, and I think ultimately comes from a practice of asceticism, right? As opposed to an art world, right, that is very attuned to sensory input of all kind, and more like not trying to repress things and transcend.
Yeah.
They're different approaches, and frankly, like, one feels gentler.
yeah.
And embodied, and the other feels like...
We're also Western. I mean...
Yeah, true,
you know,
totally.
It's of our culture.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that speaks directly to why it feels gentler.
Yeah, that makes sense, yeah.
As a piece of it, you know, because it's like, oh yeah, that is more strict, or it, you know, it could be whatever objectively defined as more strict, but also like, oh, it's gentler because I grew up with it.
Right.
It's already familiar, you know, it smells like home.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so I know you have to go to work. I'm very excited for your work, especially the story you told me about the placard with you and Kate. And then, I don't know, but based on basically all of this, if you want to just think about some moment from open movement, you know, and it doesn't have to be as, like, pivotal, you know, but just, I don't know, because this whole process that I'm doing is a real big experiment anyway, you know? So it's like, I don't know, I'm going to transcribe the interviews and then figure out what is next.
Being a scientist, yeah. You collect all this data.
Then I look at it, and then I draw it on a wall, and then...
You have a graph, at least one.
Definitely gonna get some graph paper.
Maybe a pie chart.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I can reflect on a meditative open movement and maybe do some writing about it or something. And
Yeah.
you want to talk in like a week or something like that, or
Yeah. Yeah, you want to just holler whenever, like, pick some days and that work for you.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, thank you, Erin Bell.
Thank you. Have a really good day at work.
You too.
And kiss all the people for me, okay?
Okay, I'll try.
Or, like blow them kisses or whatever feels comfortable.
I will. Okay. Bye.